Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to Adrian's Digital Basement 2. This is a super mini mail call, but a little bit of a different one. I just got back from attending VCF East. I actually got back yesterday, so it's still really fresh in my mind. So I just want to talk about that a little first. And actually on today's mail call episode, I'm going to be showing stuff that I brought back from the show. So VCF East, if you're not familiar, it's the Vintage Computer Festival. There's different ones that happen all around the US. This one happened on the East Coast, that is, and it was in New Jersey. The event is held in what is a disused military installation, and it was actually a place that was used in World War II to develop radio technology, like microwave technology, by Marconi himself. So there's a lot of history in that location when it comes to radio technology. Hopefully I can get my facts straight on this place, but I think what it is this old military base was turned over to the township where it exists in, and an adjoining university called InfoAge now owns and operates the facility. And they have turned over various old buildings, because this is a kind of a campus with a lot of old buildings, to museums to operate within these old buildings. So some of what were old barracks space are actually used for the exhibition halls where people set up their tables and showed off all these cool vintage technologies. The event takes place over 3 days, and besides all the exhibitions, there are plenty of talks that happen on all 3 of the days. And I actually participated in a roundtable on Friday hosted by Bill Hurd, yeah, the one and only Bill Hurd. And I was up on stage with the Jerry Ellsworth, as well as Fran Blanche and David from Usagi Electric. So that was pretty fun. It went for about 2 hours, and Fran actually has a version of it you can watch on her channel now, which I'll link below. But the VCF folks are going to be editing together all of the talks and releasing them over the next, well, I think it's next 4 or 5 months. So maybe a little while before you can see my talk, but it will indeed be coming out. Now, I was there primarily as a speaker. Here's my badge. I didn't have anything to exhibit, so I didn't have my own table, as did a lot of the folks who are local, because they could drive and bring stuff with them. But I spent my time at the event wandering around and getting to meet people, which was absolutely a blast. I got to meet so many of my viewers and so many of my patrons who came up and talked to me. It is so exciting to be able to see face-to-face some of the people who watch my videos. And I would tell people that, of course, when they watch me, they see me every week putting out videos, or maybe even twice a week if they watch both the channels, and you kind of get to know me, you know how I am and stuff like that. But I never get to see my viewers. I only see them in the comment section, never in real life. So meeting them face to face is absolutely a blast. I also got to meet the other YouTubers that had come to the show as well, and there were a whole bunch, like Sean from Action Retro, Steve from Mac84, David Murray, the 8-Bit guy, was there as well. Plus, as I said, I got to meet Fran Blanche, and I got to meet Jerry Ellsworth, who I'd only been able to say hello to once before a long time ago, never actually have full conversations with. So she's amazing, and we just had an absolute blast chit-chatting. There are pretty much too many names to mention of folks that I met and had an absolute blast talking to, and worse than that is I'm actually bad with names, and people who are attending the show, you don't have a name tag or anything like that. Even if you're a speaker, you just have a generic badge like this. But if you're an attendee, all you have is a wristband. So everyone introduced themselves, or I tried to ask people what their names were, and pretty much right away it kind of went in one ear and out the other. So I do apologize for that. In fact, a lot of the stuff that I have here to show that was given to me at the show, I didn't always write down the names of the people that gave it to me, so I'm going to mess that up when it comes to showing these things. Now, I purposely traveled. I traveled across the country. I flew into JFK and got a rental car and drove down to New Jersey for this event. I purposely traveled with a small carry-on bag so that I couldn't bring stuff back. I honestly went to this event not so I could try to get some stuff, but to meet people and meet my fans. It really, like I said, it means so much to me to be able to see and hear people's stories about how my videos affected them, positively, hopefully, and why they watch and how long they've been a fan for, and what their first video was that they watched, and all of those things. Now, I will add one more thing before we get to the stuff here, that if you came to the event and you didn't see me, I really do apologize. It was kind of big because there were multiple buildings, and I was moving around. I didn't stay put in one location. So you couldn't look at a map and see where I was at any given time. You had to hopefully bump into me. And I have a feeling there were probably people who came and they just were in the wrong place at the wrong time than where I was. I was there for all 3 of the days. In fact, pretty much the whole day on all of the days, except if I went to lunch or something like that. So if you did come and you never bumped into me, I really do apologize. And maybe Maybe there'll be like some kind of a tracker thing that they'll have one day at a future VCF where like I could carry a little tag around with me. So while I, push a button to be, I'm in this location, then people could come there if that's where you're looking for. If that happened to you and you came to the event and you couldn't find me, I'd love to hear a comment, because maybe this is something I can talk to the organizers about, or maybe I should consider having a table or something. I mean, were there other YouTubers there that didn't have tables? I might have been the only person. I think Jerry Ellsworth, she didn't have a table either, so she was wandering around during the event. So the two of us were probably hard targets to find at any given time. It got pretty funny at times. Like I'd be heading to the bathroom and I'd be stopped like so many times. And I'm sure some people may be watching this remember me telling them, I'm really sorry, I gotta go because I have to go to the bathroom. So yeah, it is kind of a funny event. It was really fun though. It was absolutely so exhausting because the time change from the West Coast to the East Coast, that 3-hour difference, is a little hard because the event started at 8 o'clock in the morning every day, which means getting up at 5 a.m. for me, and I am the opposite of a morning person. Okay, so Adrian from the slight future, I'm interrupting here because the wireless mic died, the battery died while I was recording this first segment of this video. So I'm gonna have to re-voice over a whole bunch of this. So I think what I'm gonna do is watch back the footage I recorded, and essentially I was doing the split view where I had the down camera along with my side view, you can see my face. I will watch it back and kind of voice over with the camera working. So, I'll be erasing what my face from before, and you'll be seeing me talking about this stuff. Because unfortunately, I don't have alternative audio sources the way I record this through OBS. I only have one thing recorded. Let's get to watching this video, and it's gonna be like me having a comment reaction on my own video in a way. Very strange. I'm doing it the same day, that's why I'm wearing the same clothes. Alrighty, so here we go. So I have here's my VCF badge that I had. I was just a speaker, as I mentioned. And let me skip ahead a little bit. Okay, so the Hard Drive Bible is a book that I was given. I don't remember who gave it to me, so I apologize. Inside here were some questions that I was given by Bill Hurd for our roundtable. They were generated by ChatGPT. I think he didn't end up using any of them. He just sort of went off the cuff the entire time, but I saved them inside the book because they were kind of hilarious. They weren't even bad questions. I mean, I don't know what his prompt was for those questions, but they came out pretty good. So the Hard Drive Bible version 8 or edition 8, what these books were is back in the day before the internet, you couldn't just look up hard drive type information. So if you had an old hard drive, like an old MFM drive, and you needed to set up a new computer with it or get it working in a newer computer, you needed to figure out what the hard drive type was, heads and cylinders and all that stuff. Now we take for granted we can just look it up on the internet. Back then, that was not the case. So books like this existed to facilitate you quickly looking stuff up. Now, this book seems to have like a lot of preamble about, I don't know, controller, jumpers, things like that, but there's a lot of pages of information about how hard drives work, which I guess goes with the whole Bible concept. It wasn't just a reference guide. It actually had like some background information on how hard drives work. But the real thing you were looking for is this right here, which is essentially a table of all the drive manufacturers and the jumpers. And especially for stuff like weird brands. I mean, you'll see stuff like CMS Enhancements and Cognito. Like, these are brands that came and went. They made hard drives and then they disappeared. And before the internet, that stuff was really hard to look up. Of course, with a book like this, you could find that stuff very easily. It seems to cover MFM, RLL, SCSI, and ESDI, and there's even some IDE stuff mixed in here. So I don't really know the exact time frame, but this book probably had, well, we know with the 8th edition, so yeah, probably had a whole bunch of, I don't know, revisions that came out, like adding new hard drives and stuff like that. But it probably was really disheartening if you did go to this book and you didn't find the hard drive you were looking for. But, that was probably bound to happen. But anyhow, it's still pretty cool. I don't know if this stuff has been scanned. I'm assuming it has, 'cause I think I've actually had to reference some of these books in the past when I had a hard drive, and it might have been one of these PTI hard drives, to be honest, that I couldn't find information on. And I think I had to find it in one of these scanned hard drive Bibles. Is it useful to have a book like this at this point in time? Not really, because like I said, I think they've all been scanned, but more so, all of the various hard drives have been, all the data sheets or whatever have been scanned in and put online at this point, so you can find that stuff. It also has controller jumper settings, which is kind of useful, and then it gets into stuff like pinouts and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool. It's really neat that books like this existed. While I myself is flipping through that, let me look at the date on this book. I didn't do that in the original video, so because I'm just sort of going on about it. Let's take a look. It doesn't have a date. There's an ISBN. Oh, here it is, 1996. And the first date was 1989. So that's the date range. I am talking about here the various pictures of the drives showing the locations of the jumpers. It's kind of nice, to be honest, because back then, like, you know, you'd have a data sheet that came with a hard drive and then it was gone. And even now, a lot of the data sheets we look at are ASCII art, and they're not even easy to tell like where the jumpers are. So that's pretty nice. I think, the one thing I'm talking about here is that it has the little ribbon inside, which is used as a bookmark. So if you're a youngster and you don't know what that ribbon's all about, well, that's what it's for. You put it in between your pages. It's a built-in bookmark you can access anytime. But anyways, thank you very much for whoever gave me this book. I really do appreciate it. It's kind of just a funny time capsule in history. One of those things like encyclopedias sitting on your shelves in your living room, just things you don't really need anymore because the internet has kind of replaced all of that. All right, the next thing here to talk about is one of my viewers came up, and his name is Adam, obviously, Adam's Retro Rehoming Project. Adam is moving and has all these computers he needs to get rid of. So he gave me this list of stuff, and he didn't have any of that stuff with him at VCF. But if anyone is interested in getting any of this stuff, there's a website, which I'm gonna zoom up on it right here. There it is, for sale.entropyadept.com. So if you are interested in getting any of this stuff, you can check there. And then, I mean, like I said, there's a bunch of stuff on here. Skipping ahead a little bit. Lots of Macs and, I don't know, stuff like that. Monitors, there's some Amiga 500, Coco, TRS-80 Model 1. And on the other side, a bunch of PC stuff, tons of 286, 386, Pentium, original XT, PC XT, motherboard, stuff like that. So yeah, if you're interested in that stuff, you can check out that website that you saw earlier. Next up, we have a sticker here. This comes from Arian, who is a viewer of mine, and it's an old, cool, classic Mac. It says time capsule on it, but that's obviously a Macintosh Plus. And then we have a save icon. No, I mean, it's actually a floppy disk sticker, so a couple cool stickers. Here's a flyer for Kennett Classic. So this is a museum in Pennsylvania, and they're having a hackathon on May 20th, 2023. So I don't know if it's virtual or not, but no, I guess it's probably gonna be on site. So if you are in Pennsylvania, I'm not sure if that's Philly or where Kennett Square is exactly, but there it is, hackathon, and they have lots of retro computers, a little museum. A bunch of nice people who were there at VCF with some cool stuff they were showing off. So if you're interested in that stuff and you live in the Pennsylvania area, I recommend you check it out, kennettclassic.com, and there's a phone number there as well. Next up, we have a sticker. This was given to me by another viewer, and I don't remember who it was. I'm sorry about that, but it's an old Apple computer sticker. I don't know if this is a replica or an original, but it has the old Apple font, which is really cool. These came with all the Apple computers back in the day, and they still do to this day, but the ones with that old font are just pretty cool and special. I had an Apple IIc, and I'm pretty sure it came with these, and I remember sticking the sticker on the front of a disc box. And I think the problem is that even though you see a white kind of beige background around the logo, it's actually clear once you peel the backing off. So that means that the text, which is black, is really hard to read if you stick it on something dark. So if I stuck it on like the back of this book here, you'd barely even see the text at that point. So you gotta stick it on something light. So I wanna stick the sticker on something, but I gotta figure out what to stick it on. And I remember when I was a kid, I had it stuck on an old disc box, and it was smoked plastic, and it was almost impossible to read the Apple computer logo. But I had that disc box forever up until, I don't know, some point into the 2000s. And then I remember clearing out some old retro stuff before we cared about retro, and I got rid of it. And it really sucks, because I really have almost nothing left from the old days. And yeah, this sticker, or a sticker just like this, that is, was on that box. The box and the sticker and everything else is gone, but as you know, I have reaccumulated a ton of stuff down here in the basement. So thank you very much for whoever gave that to me. I am sorry I don't remember names. I do remember some of the names coming up, but I didn't remember which viewer this was. Might have been Chris who gave this to me. If it was, thank you, but if not, sorry about that, and thank you anyways. Okay, next up is we got some chips here, and this was brought by a viewer all the way from Canada, obviously. We have some Ruffles ketchup, and as you can see by this other bag here, a bag of Lay's, and I've already broken into it. I got home from VCF last night, and I've already eaten like half that bag. Chips are so good. I've talked about ketchup chips before. I won't dwell too much on it, because, well, yeah, you know. They're controversial, ketchup, which I don't know why. Potatoes and ketchup, it's perfect combo, perfect combo. So ketchup chips just seem to work. Anyways, I love them. I'm glad I don't get them that often though, because I'm always trying to lose weight and getting older. Weight's easier to get on, but it's harder to get rid of. So chips don't really need to be in the house, especially big bags like this. But I do really appreciate it because I haven't been to Canada now in a number of years because of the pandemic. And it was really nice to eat these. Really bring back a lot of memories of home and stuff. So I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for bringing these. And you know what? I just cut away from the video playback there because this reminded me, seeing the chips, that a viewer, I think from Virginia, and I'm sorry I don't remember your name, a really big gentleman with a beard, came up and gave me a big bag filled with Smarties. These are the Canadian little chocolate candies that I've shown on the channel plenty of times. And I'm holding upside down. I don't remember where he said he got them, not in the US. I think someone in Canada brought them to him, or he was in Canada and brought them back. But he came to VCF to see me and give me these. So thank you very much for that. I think it looks like I have maybe 5 or 6 boxes over here still that I haven't opened. I gave a few away to some of my friends in back east who had never had them before, because Canadian. They're chocolate. They're like kind of chocolate M&Ms made by Nestle, but they're different and they're pretty good. It's pretty yummy chocolate. I think these are pretty good. I've showed them on the channel a bunch of times before, so I won't dwell on them too much, but thank you very much for bringing those to me. Again, that kind of reminds me of home because I remember eating those, going into the box and eating those when I was a kid. And if you hold them in your hand, they kind of melt, the color goes on your hand and everything. There was another viewer that also stopped and they gave me some Haribos as well. I think I had offers of other Haribos that I unfortunately had to turn down, and that's just because as you'll see as we go through this video, I was really getting low on space in my carry-on, and I knew I would run out. So I have these Haribo Peaches that I did not open. It was kind of cool to have these because it was early on in the show I got them, and in case I had low blood sugar, I could crack into these and eat some to bring my blood sugar up. But I know at least one other viewer, I think I had a few other viewers offer me Haribos, and I had to say no. So I'm sorry about that. I do apologize. It was just a space constraint issue. Okay, back to the video without the audio and me doing my voiceovers. Alrighty, next up we have a bag that has a bunch of random parts in it. Now, these little RCA chips here, it says solid state, and they're pretty old. I don't remember what it says on them. They're sitting right here on the bench, but as you can see, I can kind of see it more clearly in the recorded footage, to be honest. They look like CD40 11s or something like that, but obviously really old packages with a white ceramic package. I think they say 1973 on them. So pretty old and pretty cool. I can't remember the viewer's name who gave them to me, but they had some random things and they were just walking by and I was like rushing and off to like another building and they're like, oh, hey. And they wanted to give those to me. And I'm gonna have to pause this video because someone is at the front door. All right, moving on. The rest of the stuff in here comes from Sloopy, who works for Jim Brain, had a table set up. Jim wasn't able to make the show, but Sloopy was there, and I met Sloopy back at VCF Midwest in Chicago last year, and he had wanted to give me a new cartridge case for my Easy Flash 3. You might have seen me use this a lot on the channel. I use it for testing all sorts of machines, and I used it in this red case here. Well, Sloopy thought maybe I'd appreciate a new case, so he gave me a new one. And I had asked for a hot pink one. Now, one of the things I was just pointing out, I was holding the red cartridge, is the LED that's in there had broken off at one point. So I had replaced it with a hot pink LED itself that was in the red case. So I figured that hot pink case would be a nice addition for my board. One other thing about the Easy Flash 3, which I really like, is that it has the ability to load kernel ROMs into the C64 without any additional wiring, because normally any kind of kernel switching cartridge requires extra wires from inside the machine, and that is not the case here. I've used this thing a ton. As you can see, the connector is kind of worn out, and that's just because I put it in and out of a million 64s into dirty cartridge slots and stuff like that, but it has always worked and has never skipped a beat. I really love this cartridge, and I do highly recommend it. Gonna have to transfer the actual cartridge guts from the red case over to the pink one, but I'm noticing that the pink case does not have an LED hole, so I'm just gonna have to reposition the LED inside the PCB there so it will fit in the pink case. All right, well, I am back, and I just realized that the microphone, this wireless mic, the battery died in this, and I have no idea how much I lost on the previous segment there before I hit pause to work on this cartridge. So, this really sucks. This is kind of a worst case scenario for me. I really wish, sure, if you're listening or there's a way to get feedback, if this thing could just beep when the battery died, if it could just make a beep, I would really appreciate it. But it doesn't do anything. It just silently dies. And well, then what happens is I have no idea that I'm recording my voice or anything anymore. Unfortunately, I'm using OBS to do this recording, and there are other microphones on my computer, but none of them are actually being recorded into the MP4 file. Therefore, that audio is lost. So I guess I can do some voiceovers, which is probably what I'm gonna have to do here. Anyhow, okay, well, here's the Easy Flash 3 cartridge. I moved the LED down into the board, so it is still, you know, it's visible through the clear case. Let's plug this into the 64 here, which is turned off. And if we turn this on, there it is. Pink LED is very visible, actually. It looks quite cool. I know it doesn't really show up on camera that well, but even at an angle, you can see that it's pink, and it's a nice dark pink color to me. It looks a little blown out on the camera, but I totally love that. So anyhow, there we go. A pink Easy Flash 3 cartridge, and there were other crazy bright colors as well. That's pretty awesome. Thank you very much, Sloopy, for this. Let's move on to the other things that Sloopy gave me. He did give me a couple other small things. Move this 64 out of the way there. In this bag here, we got some other goodies. So these are some Nixie tubes. And they're the type that have the connector on the back, and they plug in, you know, whatever to a PCB, I suppose, or some type of a connector, which I guess are something bespoke. I think these are Russian made, like from the old days. Now, one of the things someone was telling me, I think it was Chris, he said, the one thing about these that is kind of a letdown is that the number 7 is like an upside down 2 or something like that. Like there's one of the numbers that just looks weird because they saved money by not having the whole little like bent assembly in there, and they just took one of the digits and they flipped it over. So when you're using it as a clock, it's not super great in that regard. Now we do have enough here for a full clock. There are 6 plus an extra for the 7th. And then I think what these were some high voltage driver ICs. They look Russian as well. K155, I can't read Cyrillic. Looks like they're from 1985. So if you're familiar with Nixie tube stuff, you're gonna probably recognize these. So yeah, there's an extra tube in case one of them is bad. And then I think this was some kind of a boost converter maybe to help generate the high voltages that are required by Nixie tubes, because these are like little vacuum tubes. You need some high voltages to feed into these things. There's a filament you have to light up and stuff like that. I mean, I've actually never done anything with Nixie tubes, so I'm kind of talking out my butt a little bit here when it comes to this, but I know there are lots of kits out there that can use these. So yeah, if you're familiar with any good kits that I can pop these into, please let me know. Preferably something that's assembled, but then I can order it without the Nixie tubes because thanks to Sloopy here, I got them. I think I've talked about this on the channel before. One of my problems is I just don't have time to build up a lot of kits. And I have several big kits that are complicated and big, and I have not built them up yet because that just takes quite a bit of time, and well, between everything going on right now in my life, making videos takes up most of my free time, and spending fun time, and it is actually quite cathartic. I find building up kits, it just doesn't seem to happen. They kind of sit there. So I apologize for anyone who sent in kits and you haven't yet seen them, and it's because I still have them and I just haven't put them together. Anyhow, okay, well, thanks very much, Sloopy, for those. Move those off to the side here. I think that was it for the bag. Yes, it was. Let's move on to the next thing. Now these, again, these were given to me by a viewer. I don't remember who, so I apologize. Wish I could have remembered if I just written it on here. As you can see here, this, oh, I gotta zoom in. This is a real-time, or a Dallas real-time clock replacement module, and I absolutely think these are amazing. So there is the little PCB. It's got space for a little surface mount IC, and it has a space for this surface mount battery holder, which is right there. So we have 2 PCBs, 2 battery holders. There are 2 batteries themselves, and I'm assuming in here are the pins and the SMD chips. And of course, now these are kits, but they're really easy to make. So yeah, if you are interested in getting Dallas replacement, there it is on GitHub though. It's a Necroware part. Necroware has a wonderful YouTube channel. I highly recommend checking out Necroware's channel. But these are just great because honestly, the problem with the Dallas clock chips, you can Dremel them and add a battery, and I've done that before, and that does work. but I wouldn't recommend buying any new ones at this point. I don't think they're made anymore, and any you find are gonna have been sitting around on a shelf for a while, which means there's that much less life left in the internal battery. So I highly recommend you just go with something like this, because these are 100% compatible, and obviously they use these coin cells, which means you're never going to Dremel it. You can always replace the coin cells. It's just an overall great solution. So I really appreciate whoever gave these to me. Sorry again for forgetting who it was, just like I have with most of the things so far. I think I have another one sitting here. Oh yeah, look at this. This looks like the same thing. Except maybe this is not, maybe this is not the open source project. Let's zoom in on this here. Anyone recognize this? I can't remember where I got this. I think I took it off something. But yeah, there's the same IC that's almost certainly on the kit right here, and the same little battery holder. So it's a great little drop-in replacement. I love it. I absolutely love it. In fact, I'm just gonna put this inside of here, because I need to find another battery, which I think I might have some more of these batteries. But yes, I'm gonna definitely build these up, because I think I have a couple motherboards that I've gotten recently that have Dallas chips, and I gotta just desolder it, and yeah, I'll get rid of those, and I will use these instead. All right, next up is this. This might have come from Robert. Robert is the one who designed the Tandy 1000EX and HX RAM expansion 3-in-1. Now, I've had a few videos about that in the past. I think I'll try to link to it down below, but if not, just sort of Google for that. Essentially, the Tandy 1000EX HX machines is kind of a wedge all-in-one. That machine had a Tandy Radio Shack expansion module for RAM, and also like a serial card and stuff you could get for those, and they would kind of stack inside the machine. Problem is, many of those were sold without those, so there are lots of them floating around, as in lots of machines floating around without any RAM expansion and without any of serial ports. The problem is 256K, which is what's on board, it's not really enough to run everything. In fact, it might be 128 that's on the motherboard. I can't quite remember. Either way, with Robert's cards, and I have one right here that I went and just grabbed it, this card does it all. It gives you compact flash, it gives you the RAM expansion all the way up to, I think, like 700 something K, and it gives you also, well, yeah, so compact flash, by the way, it means that it uses an XT IDE, so there's one of those on here, and you have a serial port. Now, unfortunately, Robert doesn't make this anymore. He was selling them for the longest time, but I think that this is a project that is open source. I'm pretty sure that is the case, although I am not sure now that I think about it. Sorry about that. But yeah, this is a cool special one he made for me, the Midnight Edition, which has this awesome kind of goldish color to it with a black PCB. It just looks freaking badass, to be honest. It really looks great. It's too bad it's kind of let down by this adapter here. These are the common compact flash IDE adapters you can buy from AliExpress and whatnot, so you can't really pick how this looks. That sort of ruins the look slightly, but you know, really when you put that inside the computer, you're not gonna see that. But yeah, this uses some of the RAM decoding logic that I used on my ISA RAM card, which ended up making its way into this PCB. But the original one I designed was for the Tandy 1000 HXEX. I made a PCB available for that, so that is still available. It's on my GitHub. There'll be a link in the description to that, as is this card, which is a regular ISA version of it. And then Robert integrated that into this card right here. So you have 512K of RAM right here, and you can, well, I thought there were dip switches on here, but I guess there are not. So I don't remember how this maps. I guess it just maps the entire 512K after the 128, and that gives you a total of 640K. So this doesn't give you any high memory support. Anyhow, it's a great card. Robert's a really smart guy, really nice guy. I'm pretty sure that this keyboard adapter thing here, let's move that over there. This was from him, but maybe not. Anyways, what it is, it's a PS2 keyboard adapter for the Tandy 1000 machines. So this DIN connector here you can see, that's the DIN that's used on the Tandy 1000s, and that is the keyboard connector, and there's some kind of little MCU on there. What code is this running? I couldn't tell you, but I do have my own code on my GitHub that allows you to put it on an Arduino, so you could make one of these yourself. There is no PCB for my version. It's just sort of a, you know, you just solder some wires onto an Arduino. I did a video about that a while back. But yeah, that's pretty cool. I wish I could put a URL to this product if you could buy it, or maybe you had a project on GitHub, you could make it yourself. But I don't have that information because it just came in this Mauser bag. And that's it. So, all right, moving on. Let's just see. It's very random what's going on here. So this is the little brochure that came with the, from the festival there. But yeah, VCF, Vintage Computer Festival East 2023 program guide. Looking in here, this is a schedule here for the classroom stuff. They had a whole bunch of stuff going on in the classroom, including like assembly language programming and basic programming. And they had a room full of C64s and 1702s. So you could go in there and learn all this stuff about the computers. So look at that, open computing time. So you could just go write your own little programs and stuff. So it kind of bums me out. I didn't even get to see any of this stuff because I was busy running around. How freaking cool. Looks like they had multiple sessions. Here's the actual schedule for the talks and stuff. Doors open at 7:30 every day. The exhibits are actually only open on Saturday and Sunday technically, although lots of people seem to be in the exhibit halls on Friday. The streamer roundtable, there it is with me. We zoom up here and make it visible. So yeah, Adrian Black, David Lovett. So yeah, so what I mentioned. And then the next day there was another one that had Bill Hurd again hosting that thing with David Murray. And we had Michael from Mike's Mac Shack, and then Steve from Mac 84, as I mentioned, and Sean from Action Retro. In addition, earlier, which I didn't see this talk either, was Jerry Ellsworth was giving a talk on the DTV to Tilt 5, which is the company she owns now. And, Jerry's an amazing engineer. And I bet you that for everyone who watched that talk said it was amazing. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that when it's uploaded to the VCF website. And look at this. I didn't even look at this paper, to be honest, while I was there, but this is the vendor list. Corsham was there. And now I'm really bummed out. I didn't go talk to Bob. I've bought stuff from Corsham for my Southwest Technical Products PC, the 6800 machine. So that's pretty lame that I missed that. The Phoenix was there as well. This is like a Commander X16-like board designed by Stephanie Allaire, and the thing is pretty impressive, I gotta say. And I have to say, I really didn't know a whole lot about it. Let me zoom in on this sheet here so you can see the URL, C260 or C256 Phoenix with an F, FOENIX.com. I was, hopefully that's in camera view. Yes, I think there it is. I was really impressed by the thing. There's a couple different versions and stuff. Really, really neat. So I'm hoping that there's some more attention given to that in the near future so that people can, check out these awesome machines. In fact, I suppose if you can scan that QR code, well, then you can get right to that URL. Thomas was there from Amiga of Rochester in the back of the exhibit hall fixing things like a madman. He had like all these broken computers and he was recapping stuff and fixing tiny little broken connectors on stuff. It was absolutely hilarious to talk to him and just see he was just inundated with people who had stuff there for him to fix. So yeah, that's pretty awesome. He does great work from what I hear. I got to meet Thomas at VCF Midwest last year and then again this time, but I hardly had time to talk to him, which is the worst thing. I really wanted to kind of pick his brain on problems because obviously he's fixed so many things. He really has a good sense for what goes wrong with SMD devices. And we're talking like the Macs generation of the later Macs have SMD caps that go bad, and the Amigas as well, like the 1200, 600, and the 4000. And here at the bottom, there's Retro Innovations, Jim Brain. That's where Sloopy was working. Jim wasn't able to attend this year, but all the cartridges and stuff like for the Retro or the Easy Flash was there at that bench. And of course, these little cool Nixies. Let's move on to the next thing here. We have a cassette tape from David Murray. Yeah, he was finishing up his table. He had a bunch of software that he was selling, like his various versions of Petsky Robot and stuff. And over the course of the weekend, it all sold out. And at the end, he had like a few tapes left, and he was like, "Here, take this. I don't want to bring it back with me," which is actually perfect because I actually have an old cassette player that I need to do some refurb on. I think a future video about that. I don't really have any tapes to play that are not copyright free, and this is one of them that I can. It's the music from Petsky Robots. Moving on, we have this. This was from a viewer of mine. It's just a Raspberry Pi 3. They kind of walked up to me and were like, "Hey, do you want a Raspberry Pi 3?" And I said, "Sure thing," because it's not like you can't get Raspberry Pis anymore. They do come into availability periodically, but not very frequently. When they appear, they kind of come and go quickly. I luckily have Raspberry Pis in stock, so to speak. I bought them before the pandemic, before it became impossible to get them. But it's still very nice to have a spare one because occasionally they break, things like that. And the Pi 3 is a nice, powerful little device. And yeah, so I'm sorry I forgot your name, but thank you very much for giving me this Pi 3, for thrusting it into my hand. And I was like, yes, I would definitely take that. All right, let's keep this train running. This is a little flyer from, I wish I'd just gotten a picture and I didn't. AmericanRetro.shop is the URL. And it's a really nice guy who had this little table set up, and he was selling completed, assembled and kit form of the Retro Chip Tester Pro. Now the Retro Chip Tester Pro, the PCB itself comes from Germany. Stefan is the one who makes this product. So you have to buy that from overseas if you're going to try to make one yourself. And then you have to go through the process of picking and ordering all the parts required to make the thing, so the building material. It's very tedious, there's a lot of parts. So this gentleman, and I don't remember his name, but he had the assembled version. At least this might be the price list for the festival. I don't know if this is the same price on his website, but as you can see here, the assembled version is $400 and the kit version is $320. Honestly, having made one, unless you really love building stuff up, I think that the $80 is worth it to just get a fully assembled and tested one. But totally up to you. Looks like you can get the PCB itself. That's $129.99. Now, you might be like, why is so much for a PCB? That, of course, comes with a software license. This is not an open source product, and Stefan, who created this, has put a ton of work into that. So buying the PCB has the microcontroller already soldered onto it, gives you access to download the firmware updates, which he's constantly coming out with, releasing tons and tons of new devices. And then it looks like you can also buy just a parts set. So if you already have the motherboard that you have bought from Stefan directly, then you can order all the parts here from AmericanRetro.shop, which can save you all the effort of going through and like creating all those building materials from Mauser and DigiKey and worried about out of stock parts and stuff like that. And he had the kits there, the parts kits there, all perfectly bagged up and labeled, all the parts and stuff like that. So it's not just like a big box just full of random parts. It's totally really nice. I met the gentleman who runs this shop as a really nice Polish guy and his wife, and she does a lot of the help, like bagging all this stuff up. Just really, really sweet man, and really a big fan of the original ZX Spectrum as well. And he sells keyboard membrane replacements as well. And he had a couple of his Spectrums on display there at the show, but those were not for sale. But anyways, I just want to mention this, that American Retro Shop is a way for anyone to buy this stuff in the US if you live here and you don't want to deal with getting the parts yourself and then buying from Germany as well. And this is just sort of a one-stop shop place to do it. I sent a few friends over to get one because they had talked to me about getting Retro Chip Tester Pros in the past. And I was like, well, did you know they have them here at the show? You could just go buy them done. And they were like, wait, what? And they went off and got those. So that would be you, Patrick, and Ian, you as well. So moving on. This is really freaking cool, and I'm gonna have to do another video about this. So what this is, there's a case here that goes with it. This is for the Fuji Apple. Hopefully we can get this to show up. And is my audio working still? Yes, it is. The Fuji Apple. Yeah, I mean, as it says, this is a FujiNet device for Apple computers. It uses a SmartPort drive interface. If I can get the bag open. I haven't even looked at this, so this is my first time looking at this, but Andy gave this kit to me. Oh, there's a QR code. Let me zoom in if anyone wants to scan that. So Andy gave this to me, and the FujiNet is an ESP32 based device originally for the Atari 8-bit line of computers, giving them network access, the ability to download and play games directly over the internet, also network interface type stuff like multiplayer online gaming and accessing Telnet BBSs and stuff like that. Well, what's happening is the FujiNet is being moved over to all sorts of other systems. It's being expanded beyond the Atari 8-bit line. Now, I haven't actually, look, I have to be fully transparent here. I've never actually used a FujiNet on any machine. So I'm not completely up to speed on everything it can do. So apologies if I get any facts wrong about this, but here is the device. This thing with, has this little case that it can go into, but you don't need to use that. There's the ESP32, so it's got the Wi-Fi module on there. There is the connector that goes to the disk drive port on an Apple IIc or a 2GS or an Apple IIe if you have the Lyrin card. I don't know how to pronounce that, like the SmartPort card for the 2 Plus, 2E. Also, you can use a regular disk controller card if you have the Soft SP ROM on a Grappler card. I'm going to be talking more about this in the future. I actually have some stuff to demo with that, and it's kind of perfect that I got this. There's also an SD card slot, so you can store stuff locally, but I saw this being demonstrated. Tom demonstrated to me. It's pretty awesome. It like boots up to like this menu, and you can like load different hard drive images with this boot menu. You can load images, you can connect it to the internet and then load hard drive images straight off the internet. It's all just pretty freaking great. There's a ribbon cable here that would plug like internally inside like an Apple II Plus, but most SmartPort devices like the 2C and the 2GS have a DB19, which is what this is. And I'm very impressed with what we're seeing here. It's a little PCB, oops, wrong way. It's a little PCB. There's the connector that goes to the ribbon cable, and then the two pin strips are installed, and then a 3D printed housing goes on there so that it perfectly plugs into the back of the computer. So you just plug this ribbon cable into this little adapter, run it to this board, and there you go. These connectors haven't been made in a long time, and actually recently Big Mess of Wires got a run made of them out of China. But the problem is, you know, they're relatively expensive. I think they go out of stock and whatnot. So you can now make your own. This adapter would work perfectly with something like the Floppy Emu or anything else that is SmartPort, that is like a custom SmartPort device. This all goes together with this case. And if I zoom out so you can see it all, this will be a cool future video. This is a great project. I really recommend checking out what's on here. Oh, here it is. Look at this. There's a little brochure here. FujiNet, the future of Apple II computing. Thank you for joining the FujiNet community. Wiki.fujinet.online. That's a quick start guide. This is open source, so there's a GitHub repo there as well. And there's a Discord, and we have an email address if you want to find out more about this. But it's just FujiNet, the concept of FujiNet is just cool because it's all internet based. Like you're just downloading hard drive images directly over the internet, or of course, like I mentioned, you can do it on the SD card. It's super flexible. And the ESP32, which is really powerful, lots of power, and it's able to emulate the SmartPort interface that that the Apple II uses. And there's even an extra cool thing that this thing can do. You can actually load IEC firmware onto this, and this can now work on Commodore 64s as well. So all you have to do instead of this ribbon cable is make a new cable that goes from whatever pins on here, I guess, to a regular IEC connection to the back of your 64. And then the 64 is online and loading disk images right from the internet. So this thing is versatile in that regard. It's not just an Apple II device, it's actually more flexible than that. And there's a lot of development going on around the 64 version of FujiNet with lots of cool features coming. That deserves its own video, which I'll need to get to. So anyhow, thank you very much, Andy, for giving me this stuff. I'm actually really, really excited for this. And I think people may be a little burned out on the main channel of Apple II videos. I've had like 3 or 4 in a row now. And you know, I don't know, people may be sick of that. So I may need to kind of pause a little bit on this and work on some other things and then get back to Apple II. But I love the whole concept of this, and I hadn't even heard of it. And yeah, really, really exciting. Now, if you can believe it, we're actually approaching the end of this episode, but not quite. Now, what we have here is a VIC-20 ZIF board. So it's just like my ZIF-64 board. Well, not just like, because obviously these aren't ZIF sockets, but it has as many ZIF sockets on it as possible. So we have the CPU here, 2 ROMs, another ROM, and this is the VIC video sound chip for the VIC-20. Every single other IC on here, if I zoom in a little bit, is in sockets. So everything is in sockets. So this was really created for easy testing of VIC-20 parts and components. This comes from Robert, who signed it right here for me. Robert, this is the Robert who made the Tandy 1000 and HXEX card. So he gave this to me, told me he was gonna have this. So I got this from him, and I'm pretty excited about this. I mean, I don't regularly have broken VIC-20s. They seem to be pretty reliable, more so than the 64, but occasionally I do. And the fact that this thing is all socketed makes it that much easier for testing. And there it is, you can see all the sockets on there. Very, very cool. I think this thing does work. I think he said it does. Obviously it's missing 3 chips, so it's not gonna work without those, but yeah, just pretty damn cool. I really like the idea of these. I hope, it's not like I invented that. Oh, look, some of these components have been relocated to the back because the sockets blocks those original component locations. It's not like I invented ZIF boards or sockets or anything like that, but it seems like when I made my ZIF-64 and started showing that on my channel a lot, lots of people started talking about making ZIF things. So I kind of take some credit for that maybe. Sorry, I'm out of frame there. So besides that, Robert gave me some bare PCBs, which we have in here. Oh, and I forgot there's actually something else from another viewer. So we'll take a quick sidetrack to that. This is it. So this comes from Frank. Now what this is, obviously it's unpopulated. he said that there were not very many of these made in the world. These, of course, I think this was a commercial product that was sold. This is for the VIC-20, just like that ZIF board, this ZIF board we're just looking at. It plugs into the cartridge port. It gives you RAM expansion and 2 additional cartridge ports. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to totally build this up. And the reason why is I have no idea if you can even get the VIC-20 cartridge slots anymore. If anyone's aware that these can be purchased, say from AliExpress or China or wherever, let me know. There's also a position right here. I should zoom in so people can see it. There's a position for a reset switch. And actually, let's flip this over. Take a look here. The Electrotechnical Products VIC-20 memory and bus expansion. Commercial product, I don't think a ton of these sold. So Frank worked for the company there. You know, this was one of the last PCBs. It's probably unpopulated left on the planet at this point. What he said was kind of cool about this is they struggled, if I zoom out a little bit, they struggled to get all of the signaling from the cartridge connector here all the way through to these, because obviously every single signal from the cartridge connector here has to make its way over to this area. And part of the problem is with all these ICs here, you have to like run those traces between all the ICs. So he said it was a little bit of a struggle, and it's just a 2-layer PCB, but you don't have a lot of room on the back due to the positive and the ground here, 5 volts in ground. But they made it work, and yeah, there it is. So it kind of hangs out the back of the machine. I think for the VIC-20, it was pretty common for these to be unhoused, like there wouldn't be a case around this. Now, could have one, you know, if they had the injection molding or whatever to make it, but that would be really expensive. So a lot of these, they just had like metal standoffs on the bottom, and they would just sit on your desk and plug into the machine. I actually have a couple of the versions of these that simply allow you to plug multiple cartridges in, and they have a toggle switch or like a rotary selector to pick which one you want to use. Now, what I do not know is what type of memory, or it's like going to be SRAM chips, what type of SRAM chips will go into this board. There are a total of 18 positions, so I'm thinking it's 2K SRAMs. So is that like a 6126, I think, is like a common one. And then that would give you 36K of RAM expansion, which I think, depending on how the mapping works, is possible to work. What I don't totally get, and well, I don't see a selector switch for which cartridge slot to use, and I don't really see any toggle switches to turn off and on the RAM. Depending on what cartridges you stick on, you have to disable some of the RAM, because the RAM takes up the space where the cartridges go for the ROMs, and that's how you have extra memory on the VIC-20. The VIC-20 memory map's a little bit complicated, where it has like little gaps in memory here and there, and you can't even directly map in all of this memory. So like this 36K can't go directly into like a big chunk. It actually has to be broken up as well. So I'm assuming that's what these logic chips do. There are part numbers listed on here for the logic chips. These are going to be, it says DC, so those will be bypass caps. Looks like here, it's a 4.7K. So yeah, all the values are written on here. The only thing that's not written on here are the values for these ICs. Like I said, I think it's just like a 6126. Reset here, this says reset on it, so I'm assuming that's a button. And there's 2 holes right here, so maybe that's, no, that looks like voltage. So you can power this externally. Oh, interesting. So it's quite possible. Yeah, there's a jumper block right here. So it's quite possible you can remove these jumpers or not install that. And then this will not be powered off your VIC-20 so to overload the internal power supply. And you'd have to power this up externally. So yeah, if you have any thoughts on how this might work with the selection of this stuff, let me know. I was a VIC-20 user back in the day, but I never had anything like this for mine. So I'm just not really super familiar. I just sort of thought something with a RAM expansion here would have a way to disable the RAM for your cartridges, or potentially for these cartridges, or a way to select which one you want to use, because you can't just put 2 normal cartridges in at the same time. So I got questions. I'd like to know how this works, and it'd be a fun project to build this up. But again, just kind of need some input on how this might work. So yeah, I would really appreciate that. I am sure some of my viewers are familiar with that. These are also boards that came from Robert, unlike that last one, which came from Frank. So Robert has this one here. This board, if I zoom in here, this is a RAM expansion board, a clone of a RAM expansion board for the Tandy 1000, the original 1000. What this allows you to do is add RAM to that machine, because it doesn't have enough space on the motherboard to handle all the RAM, but it also allows you to add the DMA functionality to the machine. The original Tandy 1000 EX RAM expansion card has an extra VLSI looking chip on a PLCC type chip that gives a DMA capability to the motherboard. The DMA controller is just simply not present on that machine without that IC. Well, it turns out on XT platforms, the only thing that really uses DMA, besides something like a 8-bit Sound Blaster, I guess, would be a floppy drive controller. Well, on a Tandy 1000EX or a 1000HX, there's no way to plug a Sound Blaster into there, so it doesn't really matter. And without the DMA controller, the onboard Tandy ROMs work. I guess they're just not as fast, but honestly, people have done comparisons between the 1000EX and HX with and without DMA, and there's no noticeable difference. The reason this card exists is, like I said, it's a replica for that original Tandy 1000, which also lacked DMA. It adds a DMA controller. The idea was to take the design of this and put it onto a board that would work inside the Tandy 1000EX and HX, giving that machine the DMA capability that it lacks in a way that you can use normal ICs where you don't have to use a special custom Radio Shack part, which I guess combined all of this into one chip. You can use these discrete components. But as I mentioned, after testing, there was no performance increase, so it was decided that there's just no point to do that. Now, is this available online? It says Sunnyvale, California. Maybe this, I don't know who made this. I do not know if this was a third party. ATD Incorporated Sunnyvale model T51 or T512 CLK-A1. I don't even know if this was designed for the 1000EX directly, but I think it was. I don't think it was a Radio Shack part, hence this branding on here. I do not know if this is something you can download yourself. I unfortunately don't know much about it, but try Googling these part numbers and stuff if you're looking to make one of these yourself, and then hopefully you can find what you need. Also, let's see, let's go to this PCB right here. What we have here, and there is Robert's signature again. This is a TI-99 replica motherboard. Now this is, I think this is a working one-to-one replica with the TI-99. So if for some reason you wanted to make a new one and you could get your hands on these chips, you could, and you can get your hands. These chips are all off-the-shelf parts. I don't think there's that much custom stuff except for some of these GROMs here, which is like a weird serialized ROM chip. It's weird, it's hard to explain how that works. Go look up GROM, G-R-O-M, if you're interested in seeing some funny stuff that TI did. Anyhow, the problem with this motherboard is TI on the original one used these strips, which are like bus bars, to transmit the different power rails around the motherboard because it's only a 2-layer PCB. Because of that, they had to use these paper kind of strips with these metal contacts in them, and there's different holes here. Those are unobtainium at this point, completely unobtainable. You cannot get those. You can replicate them with wires, but it's kind of ugly. And if you're not careful, you could put 12 volts into the 5-volt rail and cause damage, kind of like what I did on one of my repairs. So this is not a recommended motherboard to build up because of that problem with these strips. Yeah, 6 of them, plus there's a couple wires that have to run across the board. What Robert did, at least him and the people who came up with this, is they redesigned it, he redesigned it, and made a new version that's 4-layer, that those power rails are handled internally, that gets rid of the need to use these stupid bus bars. So if you're trying to make a replica TI-99, well, you can do it with that new motherboard design. Again, I don't have a URL you can go to get it, but hopefully if you just Google for the TI-99 reproduction, you'll be able to find it. It's by Robert Krenicki, that's his last name. And yeah, this just looks like the date was 2021. This machine has 5 volts, 12 volts, and -5 volts, all required by various chips. In fact, the processor at the minimum needs 12 volts and 5 volts. And I don't know if some of the other ones, I think the RAM is 4116, which is going to be that -5-volt rail that is also provided. So anyway, so that was cool. Robert signed for me. This will just go up on the wall as a kind of cool, unpopulated TI-99 replica. And we're getting to the end here. There is another board that Robert designed, and this is for an MSX, an MSX2, in fact. Could I tell you which one it is? No, I cannot. He's a big fan of the MSX line of computers. So this is the main PCB. It's got 2 cartridge slots there, chips, stuff around. Looks like a battery holder. MSX2 was a big improvement from the original MSX. The MSX1, of course, was, well, it's a Z80 based system, but it uses similar graphics and sound as the TI-99, in fact, same graphics processor. The MSX2 had backwards compatible graphics with MSX1, which is like the TI, but I think it has more RAM, it has much better graphics and sound, and it has a faster CPU and stuff like that. And I think by then, like, stuff was getting integrated into like this multi-pin chip here, and probably has 128K of RAM. I wouldn't be surprised with this memory right here, and maybe there's some more memory there. And anyway, so that's a replica PCB. It's kind of cool. I probably won't be building this up just because Probably at this point, if I just want to buy an MSX2 from Japan, that might be the easiest thing to do. So there's that PCB, and I think this last one here is a keyboard replica. Is this for, it says Omega Home Computer, keyboard version 1.1. Okay, so this is not an MSX related to the MSX at all. Looks like it came from Sergey here. Yeah, so Robert gave this to me. I don't remember what he told me about it because it was all whirlwind, but this obviously looks like it takes some mechanical key switches. So as a way to replace the broken keyboard on your Omega with something better. And I'm realizing now while editing that the Omega MSX is a DIY recreation of an MSX2. So I guess this keyboard PCB and probably the actual motherboard PCB, which here is a picture of it, the Omega MSX PCB. Yeah, this looks like it right here. The motherboard that Robert gave me is actually just one of these. So I suppose it'd be kind of fun to build one of these up. So if anyone knows of a build of material that I can get for this so I can easily obtain all these parts, let me know, because you know what? Maybe this is a good alternative to getting an MSX2 from Japan and just having this awesome DIY one. That is it for this mail call episode, the VCF wrap-up episode. I'm gonna have to go and re-voice over the beginning of the episode because I looked at the file and there's quite a lot of me talking, but then the battery cuts out on the thing and then that's that. So I'm gonna have to try to voice that over, which I don't know, I'll figure out a way to do that. Maybe I don't know. It's gonna be weird. Like I said, very disappointing that the battery dies. If it just beeped, I would have heard it, stopped talking, switched to my second one, which had a charged battery, and then we would have been good. But anyways, thank you very much for everyone who gave me this stuff to bring back. Thank you everyone for coming up to me and chatting with me at VCF. And like I said, I apologize if you came and you couldn't find me. I'm gonna try to figure out a solution to that next time so that hopefully that won't happen. Like I said, please let me know if you did come and you couldn't find me, because yeah, we gotta come up with a solution. Maybe if someone can think of a way for like a public tracking, me to do some kind of public tracking while the event is going on. So I can say, go to this URL if you wanna see where I am on the grounds. And then obviously when I leave the grounds, you know, I'll just turn that off and stuff so it's not all stalker central. But yeah, I feel disappointed if you made your way to VCF. I hope if you did and you couldn't find me, you still had a really good time, because it was a really cool event and there was just lots and lots of great stuff to see. So I think that's gonna be it. I've talked my voice off right now, which I did also at VCF. My voice was raspy and I haven't even fully recovered, so it's getting raspy again. So like I said, thanks very much to everyone. It means so much to me, all the support and all the love that I get. It's kind of makes me emotional sometimes how amazing people are. So thank you very much for watching. Thanks to my patrons. Their names are scrolling up the side of the screen. I should switch to the full camera at least. Their names are scrolling up the side of the screen. Their support is so important to me, especially in light of all the crazy YouTube shenanigans that happened recently and how scary that is. So at least I always have the Patreon to fall back on. And, oh wait, there was one more thing I forgot to show. No, I'm gonna have to do it on the next episode because I really have talked my voice off. So yeah, thanks very much for thanks everyone for everything. Subscribe, you know, thumbs up, all the usual YouTube junk, and comment down below. That's gonna be it. Stay healthy, stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.